Operation Christmas Child is a project of the Christian International Relief Organization Samaritan's Purse and is the world's largest Christmas project of its kind. The mission of Operation Christmas Child is to demonstrate God's love in a tangible way to children in need around the world and to share the good news of Jesus Christ. Since 1993, Operation Christmas Child has collected and delivered more than 178 million gift-filled shoeboxes to children in more than 160 countries and territories, and this year hopes to collect enough shoebox gifts to reach another 11 million children. As the world struggles with the coronavirus pandemic, boys and girls around the world need to know that God loves them and has not forgot about them during this time of fear and uncertainty. Now more than ever, children need the hope found only in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Will you join Operation Christmas Child this season by packing traditional shoebox gifts or building shoebox gifts online? Anyone can pack a shoebox. Individuals, families, churches, students, and groups. And packing a shoebox is a great way to teach kids about thankfulness and giving back to those in need. This week is National Collection Week. Shoeboxes will be collected across the country. Visit SamaritansPurse.org/OCC to learn how you can pack a shoebox or build one online. The other side of the road is safe, where we sidestep being bothered and avoid getting involved. But rolling up your sleeves and boldly going where few dare to tread, that's walking through Samaria. Each week on our podcast, we introduce you to the special few who walk in the spirit of the Good Samaritan. On behalf of the Giving Company and your hosts, David Hendrickson and Dan Riveros, welcome to the Walking Through Samaria podcast.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of the Walking Through Samaria podcast. Dan, we're here in Alpharetta, Georgia.
What's going on, man?
Live.
How you doing? Back in
My
the
mask
office.
is hanging from my ear. You don't even have one.
I know. I don't know who that's more scary for, you or me.
I know. You're a young guy. You have no risk. Like, it must be nice to be you.
Yeah, you know.
So, Dan, today in the studio,
We got Nate Butler.
Nate
superstar.
Butler, famous person in the house. How about that?
Oh my goodness!
I'm sure some names on the credentials stick out to me more than you.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm gonna let you do the intro.
I knew Luther Vandross, right?
I have a funny story about Luther Vandross.
So, I knew that one.
I saw Shawty Low on the on the wiki.
I know P. Diddy. I know Posh Spice.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, you do. I mean, you're doing good.
I got three.
You're doing good.
Nate, it is truly an honor and a pleasure to have you here. We're so excited to talk about music.
Yes.
I mean, we've got so much to unpack, but I'm going to read for our listeners your bio, if you don't mind, so that they can all get up to speed on the latest and greatest from Nate Butler, and then we're going to dive right in. So, listeners, here we go. Nate Butler has worked on multiple television shows, working as a casting director for The X Factor, 2 seasons of America's Got Talent, Showtime at the Apollo with Steve Harvey, The 4 on Fox with P. Diddy, Meghan Trainor, DJ Khaled,
We the best.
and Fergie, the 2020 Netflix show Just Sing, and was tapped to cast the MTV reboot of P. Diddy's Making of the Band. Come on. Nate is a songwriter and producer. He has been a part of, check it, 45 million plus records sold worldwide at last count. He's worked with Luther Vandross, thank you, Victoria Beckham, which is the other name for Posh Spice, Houston, Craig David, the Backstreet Boys, I know them, 3LW, JoJo, Aaron Carter, the Cheetah Girls, Jay Sean, Guy Sebastian, Justin Bieber, I know him too. Many others. Nate is also a speaker and pastor. Come on. 45 million records and a pastor, having helped lead the Passion City Church College Ministry for 8 years, a cause near and dear to our hearts here at Giving Company. He also is an advocate working with the humanitarian organization Check It World Vision to activate people to engage with poverty around the globe. He reaches into people, encourages them to chase their dreams, leaves them better than when he found them. We should all do that. And then inspires them to go and do the same with their gifts and talents. Nate is a bridge builder. He sees the chasms between spaces in our culture, and he actively works to bridge those gaps. You must be a busy man. Nate Butler, welcome to the Walking Through Samaria podcast.
Wow, thank you. You know, I'm actually tired just from I'm actually tired. Just from
I would be tired. This sounds like a lot of work and a lot of good work.
Oh man, it's you know, when I sit back and I listen to all of that, and the only thing I could think about is that seek ye first the kingdom. And I remember when
all these things
will be added.
You.
I mean, it's a rhythm, right? It's a rhythm. I love looking at it like, let's talk about somebody juggling. Like, so when somebody first starts juggling, they start with one ball. So, right? So you just have that one ball and you're just throwing it up in the air with one hand. You're throwing it up in the air with one hand. And that first rhythm that you're learning is seeking first the kingdom. It's seeking first the kingdom. Then the next thing you know, another ball is added. Why? Because the first ball, you've stored it so well. So they throw you that second ball. That's the thing that's been added. But guess what? Now you're working that second ball in the mix. So now you got two balls. You got two balls. And once you're doing that, next thing you know, God is like, okay, boom, there's a third ball. Now he's giving you a third ball. So now you're just juggling and you're juggling, you're juggling, you're juggling. And you're in the rhythm of that first ball. So you still have that first ball, but the other two balls are in the mix. Now, what you don't understand is sometimes people can juggle four things. So now, how do people juggle four things? You got to use two hands. So now you got two hands. You got two balls in one hand. You got two balls in one hand. Then God is like, okay, I'm going to throw something else at you. Now, you can't juggle 6 balls or 5 balls. You can't do it. But you need help. Then God will send people. He will send people into you to help you juggle the things that he's adding to you. So all that to say is I have help. I have help. And so I have help, and I'm thankful that God has sent me help to help me do these things.
Well, you got the first ball right.
Yep.
That's one of the things that I've learned in the time that we've been talking. And we've said it a number of times on this podcast, and maybe you can help me, Nate, with the scriptural support of this, but I truly believe every person that I've encountered in my walk, God has put them there for a reason. Like, I truly believe that to my core.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I have been thinking about this particular concept later, and let's even talk about like right now. So anybody like right now that's listening, we understand that we are in COVID, right? But however, there are things.
I have the mask hanging from my ear to prove it.
I have my mask is right there, you know. But when I think about purpose by design, and there are people right now that are sitting in a situation and they are about to enter into a new season. You're entering into that new season and you have beat COVID and you're entering into a new season. Why did you do that? Because you are here for somebody else. So you beat COVID for somebody else. You actually may have gone through the financial problem for somebody else to show them how to make it out. You went through a divorce, horrible, but now you're standing on the other shore of that to help somebody else either keep their marriage or heal from the divorce that they went through. Yeah. So the reason why we are positioned and placed in the places that we are is because it's for somebody else. And what happens is that when we take our eyes off of that, then we got that me syndrome.
That's right.
And now
it feels bad. It feels worse.
It feels worse. It feels bad. And it's like, that's that thing of like, I will exalt myself. And that never goes well for anybody. That's how you get kicked out of heaven.
There you go. Well, let's start at the beginning, if you don't mind.
Please, I know you can't give a preacher a mic.
Pastor's kid from Baltimore.
Yes.
Be more.
So walk us through PK from Baltimore to music production in Atlanta.
Yeah, man. Body More Murderland. That's what they call it from where I'm from. I know, right? I know, but shout out to everybody from Baltimore that's there.
I like that. I like the accent from out there.
Oh yeah, you too, dude. We'll get you. We'll get you. I've tried to run away from it. And somebody's like, "Oh, you from Baltimore? Yo, you heard it." So, yeah, I went to Morehouse College.
Outstanding.
Went to Morehouse College.
Is that what brought you here?
That's what brought me to Atlanta. Morehouse College brought me to Atlanta, not music. Matter of fact, my my dad hates it when I say this, but it's so true. My dad didn't want me to come to go to anything that had anything to do with music. And it's not the fact that he didn't believe in my giftings and my talents, even though he has said multiple times, such and such son at the church, now he can sing. And like, even though, so growing up, like, Dad, I want to sing. But no, but the one that can sing is Bobby on the choir. Like, now he can sing. So I think that, and this is, and I do like these little bunny trails sometimes, but I always know it's for somebody. So it's kind of like one of those things of like my dad, it's not that my dad was against me entering into music. It's just that there was nobody in our life in proximity that was successful.
Yeah.
Unlike Atlanta.
Yeah.
Everybody here does music.
Yeah, and what I wanted to do, it was like nobody. We went to the barber. If I wanted to be a barber, my dad be like, great, let's open up a chain of barbershops. Yeah. If I wanted to be a doctor, okay, great, we're gonna go to Morehouse School of Medicine. If you want to be a preacher, plenty of preachers in my family, but there was nobody in proximity. So when I say I want to do music, he's like, whoa, wait a minute, that's New York, you're in the subway and you're begging for pennies. And you're asking me for money my whole life, and I don't want that.
Has anybody really, who's came out of Baltimore, really?
Mario.
Okay. Wasn't Cisco from there?
Drew Hill.
Okay, Drew Hill,
Drew Hill. So it's, a matter of fact, a lot of people, I want to say Lil Mo is from Baltimore. Okay. So it's some people, out of Baltimore. Yeah. And so what ends up happening, I end up at Morehouse. I got a degree in religion and philosophy.
Nice.
So I studied actually all world religions with a focus, of course, in Christian studies.
My son's a religion major at Georgia. Right now. Yep.
So a focus in Christian studies. So I was forced early to learn how to dialogue between
that's so good
different world religions, and also the philosophy was a minor in philosophy, and I also did a minor in drama and theater, but that was just so I could go across the street to Spelman. Just
there you go.
The ladies, you got to keep it real. And so what ends up happening is though I come to Morehouse and just my first day in Atlanta, my big brother, like at the time, he's not my real big brother, he was actually had a 10-day contract for the Hawks. So I used to play basketball, so he was mentoring me, whatever. So that morning, I'm playing basketball at the Hawks training facility with like Dominique Wilkins, Kevin Willis, Snoop Graham, all of those guys.
Wow.
Then later on that night, he's like, Nate, I'm going to take you someplace. Now, I'm 17 years old at the time. I came to Morehouse the summer early to get summer credit. And it wasn't because I was smart like that. It's because I got accepted into Morehouse on academic probation. Right. I wasn't even supposed to be in Morehouse, but God needed me in Atlanta. Yeah. So they made me come to summer school while all my friends senior year were having a ball. Yeah. I'm in school. So, but my first day there, I'm playing basketball. And then that night, he's like, Nate, I'm going to take you someplace tonight. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. So that night we get in the car. And he takes me to the other side of Atlanta. I've never been there before, off of Northside Drive. Then we come up to this big gate. He pushes in the code, and it's this massive gate, and on the gate was these 3 Bs. The gate opens up, kind of like what you would see on the Lifestyles of Rich and Famous. It opens up real slow, and now there's this windy road going up to this huge house. We go to this house, and I see this Mercedes SEC in the driveway. I also see a Rolls Royce. So I'm like, man, where am I at? So I'm thinking, of course, I'm at like a basketball player's house. The door, we go to the door, ring the doorbell, and this girl comes to the door, and I'm like, man, she looks familiar, but it really wasn't. It's like she looks like somebody, but I don't know. But then we walk in, and on the wall is this huge 3D. Let me throw this out there. Not necessarily my taste, but a 3D rug picture with this guy's face on it. And it was Bobby Brown. I was at Bobby Brown's house.
Wow.
And the girl was Bobby's sister. And my buddy was dating her.
Nice.
And he said, and now...
This is pre-Whitney? This is
like right before Whitney. But so I was around during all of that.
My biggest crush in college, bar none, was Whitney Houston.
Man, let me tell you something.
When her mouth opened, because I was in music at Indiana, and I'm trying to remember which album it was that dropped when I was in college, but I mean,
Bodyguard.
Yeah, so the Bodyguard one.
Bodyguard.
And then she sang a duet with her mom, I Know Him So Well.
Yeah, Sissy Houston.
And
Crazy, right?
She was definitely the one for a minute.
Huge crush.
I mean,
sad story.
did you know that Whitney Houston never wrote a song?
I believe it.
See, so for some of you guys out there listening, it's okay to be great at one thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So
Good.
now I'm at Bobby's house.
Yep.
And at that moment, I'm looking at like the MTV Music Award. I'm looking at all these awards. And then it was like, you know what? I can do this.
That's awesome.
And that moment, we all need to come into proximity of something that we believe that God has called us to do. We just need that little thing. This is what God told Abraham. Look at the stars.
Yep.
This is what I'm calling you to do.
Yep.
So that was my look at the stars moment of like, you know what? I can do this. What are the odds?
So how do you go, hey, Dad?
Oh, man. Let me tell you
Hey,
something.
it's me, Nate.
Let me tell you something. I mean, honestly, I didn't tell him. Like, I didn't tell my parents anything because from that moment on, I was moonlighting. I was something called a chapel assistant at school. So I would be preaching at Morehouse, like, but then at nighttime, I would be like going through all the studios, meeting everybody. Had lots of promises, letdowns from LL Cool J, took me out to eat, picked me up in a limousine, said he was going to sign me to my label, never heard from him again. Keith Sweat, Arrested Development, all of these people. And so I end up graduating from Morehouse with just being in the Atlanta scene, like people knowing who I am, but people having good intentions, but really not wanting to help, just simply because it's just one of those things. Like people want to help, but then, their stars are busy. Like they're just busy. And, so later on, I end up going to Emory to get a degree in law and theology. And the reason why I went to Emory was because they gave me a scholarship. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that because they were going to give me money. And I just wanted to be in the music business. And I needed, and it's, okay, Lord, I've had to repent for this so many times. I really just went because they gave me the money. But, hey, Emory, we've worked that out. So I was there for a year, and then we came to this agreement, and they were like, Nate, we kind of think that your heart is other places. I was like, you know what, guys, it's true. So I let that go. But during that period of time, I was offered a record deal with a new startup record company here called Noontime Music. And those guys that own that have gone on
as
to
a
be...
writer, a producer?
As an artist.
As an artist?
I wasn't... I didn't even know I could write yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
As an artist.
Dang.
So my boy, his name was Shakir Stewart, rest in peace. He ended up becoming like... He ended up signing Rick Ross and all. He became like an executive at Def Jam Records. Some of the other guys that ended up starting Noontime, they ended up doing some. One of them right now owns Bounce TV. Another one right now ended up owning a content company with Mary J. Blige and all these other people. But at that particular time, I was going to be the first male artist of this small company that had a lot of ambition.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah. So I ended up going to sign the contract, but on my way to go sign the contract, a car runs a stop sign and wraps my car around a tree. Talk about a wake-up call.
Yeah. Wow.
And grace of God. I wish I had pictures. But
of how bad it was?
It was just, it was horrible. I mean, it's a miracle that I walked away without a scratch. Yeah. Miracle. So, needless to say, from that moment on, I kind of was just like, okay, not saying that God doesn't come to steal, kill, and destroy. That's the enemy. So let's just keep that was God's grace, that and angelic protection that got me. So, but at that time, I was like, oh, I think I may need to kind of reevaluate things. And in that moment, God didn't have my heart. He had the outward. I look. You could put me in a situation. I knew what to say.
Yep. How to act.
I knew how to act.
Yeah.
You put me in that. You put me in that moment where the church needed to be lit. I knew everything to say. I had the outward appearance. I had the form of godliness, really, but no power. All of this at 21. And so I just was like, you know what, Lord, I need to step back, and the thing that you gave me, I'm gonna give to you. And just it's around that time period of 21, 22, 23. I don't remember it all. But what I did was I did not do any type of music for a year. I just prayed and I fasted.
That's so good.
That's crazy.
That's so
a whole
good.
year without doing music.
A whole year.
Wow.
I prayed and fasted. Whole year. And let me even point that out too. It was hard to do that because I worked at the Hard Rock Cafe.
Yeah.
So
no, and as an artist, that's not
right.
Like artists need that every other day.
You need that every day.
Every other day.
Right. And the reason why I worked at the Hard Rock was because I always knew I was going to have a free meal. So I did that, but for a year. And let me tell you what that looked like for me, praying and fasting. For me, sometimes it looked like not watching television for the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes it looked like, well, I'm not going to eat until 7. Some days it looked like I'm just going to eat one meal for one time a day for a week.
Yep.
But it was me giving up something so I could hear clearly from God.
Yeah.
And I did that really for a year, and I fell in love with Jesus. I fell in love with God. Like everything that I had seen through relationship that he had with my parents, with my grandparents, and everybody in church, in scripture became so real. Because you can't help but you're saturated in scripture. I'm a church boy. I grew up in it.
Yeah.
So now, but everything makes sense because the Holy Spirit was enlightening me to see the Rhema word, to see like what God was actually doing. And so I did that for a year. And I told the Lord I got a job at a daycare because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. But it's funny, my ambition is just how I am. I was like, well, shoot, I'll just learn how to become an amazing daycare person. I opened up a chain of daycares. So
everybody wins.
Yeah, so in my mind, I was just thinking like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Now, I get a phone call from one of my friends at the time that was working for Dallas Austin. Shout out Dallas Austin. If you don't know about Dallas, Dallas is a beast. He did everything from Boys to Men to Madonna. He's just a crazy, amazing producer. So my buddy who I went to school with, who's also from Baltimore, he said, hey, Nate, let me kind of go back a little bit. I got a phone call from one of my friends who said, Nate, are you still doing music? And I was just like, So I kind of paused and I just kind of waited to see if I had like a check on my spirit because I was like, man, Lord, I still want to do it, but it's really, I'm cool where I am. And I didn't. So I was like, yeah, man, what do you need? He said, I need you to sing a demo for me that I need to shop to another artist. I'm like, great. He said, how much do you charge? And I was like, you know what? How about you do a gospel song on me to like a crazy hard like hip hop beat? He was like, what? And I was like, look, it's no, you don't gotta pay me. Let me just give me one of your throwaway beats and I'll do it.
Wow. And
so he was like, all right, cool. He's like, well, I don't write gospel. Who gonna do it? I was like, man, and I never wrote before. I was like, I'll do it. So I write the song. It was called "The Anointing Will Break Your Yoke." It sucked. Like it was not the word.
The title's good.
The title was
break your yoke.
But the anointing will break your yoke. You know what I mean? So, but the song itself, I don't want to say it sucked, but it wasn't
first one.
You know what I mean? Now, now I had that song professionally done. It was so sick, and I was like, oh man, okay, Lord, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do gospel, and I'm gonna put it on like these crazy like R&B hip hop beats, right? And so had this one song. I took it to my boy who worked at Dallas's spot, and so I gave it to him, and he was like, Nate, man, bro, look. He was like, it's good, but man, we just can't be having no gospel guy around here. Around the studio, because that's like conviction, just walking the halls, you know what I mean? So he was like, you my boy, but he was like, yo, but my assistant's boyfriend is actually, she mentioned to me that he's trying to do music like this. I was like, what? So that night I went to go see him. He had did songs on everybody from Pink to Aaron Hall, like all these amazing. So Tyrese, he had did like 15 million records before I even met this guy. And so he was like, I played him the song. He was like, oh man, this song was great. He's like, man, so, because I heard that you were an amazing writer. And then in my mind, I'm just like, I've never really, that song, like, So he says this to me. My writing partner, we're kind of going through like a season right now where we're kind of not like separating, but we're kind of going our Abraham a lot. You know, so he's going one way, I'm going one way.
Yep.
His cousin, which was his cousin, went on to write Umbrella for Rihanna and a bunch of other songs. And so I'm with him and he's like, hey man, I have a track that's up right now. I'm going to leave the room. He was like, man, I'm going to come back in 20 minutes. Let me see what you got. So now I'm sitting here like, okay.
This is a test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, okay, I've never really done this. Like, because the first song, the reason why I was so bad was because it just made no sense. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, well, but I had been in the Word for so long. So I just ripped the Psalms. So I just was like, the hook was like, I found a hiding place when I'm with you, shelter in the time of storm, always there to see you through. I remember writing that as the hook.
Wow.
But it was, and I wrote it for a girl. And I was, so it could be interpreted as.
Gotta be for a girl.
Oh, yeah, you already know. You already know.
That's why we write songs.
That's why we write songs. You know what I'm saying? So look, so now I do that, but it could be perceived as either way.
Yeah.
Because I knew the song that he needed at the time. He needed it for a major record label that was a secular label. But at the time, I was only really immersed in the Psalms because I was like, well, Lord, which I didn't know that David was the greatest songwriter to ever live.
That's right.
And so there was something that was put on me because I was saturated in the Psalms. I was reading it every day. So what God put on David, I believe there was an exchange in that moment. So anyway, I began writing. He comes back in. He's like, "Oh man, this song is hard." I was like, "Yeah, it's hard." But what he didn't know is I was praying in that room. I was like, "Yo, you got to show me something. Show me how to write this." So we do the demo of the song. Girl comes in, does it. The next day, I'm in L.A. Reid's office.
That's crazy.
Next day, playing in the song. L.A. Never forget this. He's spinning around in his chair. He's like, yeah, this song is there. This is great. This is great. Now, he knew my guy. He knew my buddy, but he didn't know me, So I'm just in there. I'm just trying not to fan out. Because what L.A. didn't remember was back in the day, I ran up on him at a studio and was like, hey, man, you L.A. Reid? And he had this briefcase with a chain tied to it, like 2 o'clock in the morning. It's like, you L.A. Reid? I'm a singer. And he was like, no, I'm not him. But it was him. He was scared. I ran up on him. So I was like, please, I hope he don't remember my face. So now I'm in his office about 5 years later. He's spinning around in his chair saying he loves it. He says, you know what? This song is going to go great on a new girl group that I just signed named Choice. 3 white girls that actually sang like SWV.
Really?
They was incredible.
Wow.
Right? So now I'm like, oh my goodness, I got my first song placed as a songwriter. I didn't even know I could write songs. See, but what happened was when I opened up my hands and I gave God what he gave me, which was my voice at the beginning, he multiplied it and gave me something else. Or he was like, hey, or basically what he did was he actually said, well, let me show you what else I gave you. Because I know I could trust you with the artist thing. Now I'm gonna show you something else that I could trust you with, and that was that I had the ability to write songs because I was willing to lay it all down.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Oh, but
go ahead. Okay, go ahead, and then I'll put you on the spot. Yeah, be ready.
So what ends up happening is after this, I'm excited. I got this song placed. Then 4 months later, Choice gets dropped from the label. So now I'm like, oh man, this is horrible. And they kept the lead singer. Her name was Elisha.
And they kept your placement?
Nope. But they did change her name to Pink.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Come on.
Yeah.
And I can say that my song did not go on Pink's album, but me and Pink was mad cool together.
Yeah.
But the third song I wrote ended up going on a girl group called Escape.
Yeah.
Jermaine Dupri, So Def. Shout out to Candy and Tiny.
Yep.
And now, Candy's one of the housewives of Atlanta. Shout out, Candy, if you listen, I'm going to send it to you. And so, and that record sold 1 million copies. And then that kind of opened up the door for so many things to happen 2 years later.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
But you needed the year.
Oh,
right.
If I didn't have that year,
yeah.
I would, honestly, listen, let me just throw this out there. If I didn't have that year, my aspirations was to be Bobby Brown, take off my shirt, sing on every stage and be like, ladies, come here. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be that. I wanted to stick out my bird chest and be the new. I wanted to be the Earl of R&B because he says he's the king of R&B. So I wasn't the prince, but I'd be the Earl or the Duke of R&B.
There you go. 45 million records later.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite song? And you probably can't answer this second question, but do you have a favorite artist that you've worked with? Best experience. And if you have to knock on that second one, that's okay. So you don't get in trouble.
No, I don't mind answering that. Okay. So all songs to me, the reason why this one song does have a special thing for me is because of what it did for my family. So I'm going to have to go with the Luther Vandross song, Say It Now. Look at Jesse. Now, and I say that because it's a funny story attached to it. So now I'm about 15 million records in, year 2000. Year 2001. About 15 million records in. And I'm doing all right. I got deals coming from everywhere, I'm thankful. And at the time, I was still serving. And at the time, too, I was serving at a church. I was on the intercessory prayer team. So I had been on the intercessory prayer team for about 6 years, even in between this whole time. So I just wanted to share that. Once I spent that, what I call a gap year with God.
Yeah.
I just was led to a church, and I really was planted inside of that church. So around 2001, but my dad, when people would call my dad between that time period up until 2001, like, hey, so, how's Nate doing? How's he doing? My dad never wanted to say, he's doing music. He would rather be like, oh, he's preaching somewhere, so he would be, and my dad's very funny. He's like Cliff Huxtable, he's that guy.
Got it.
So he's just like, well, I guess he's doing all right. He don't call home for money. He's like, he would just be like. That's
the indicator, right?
Like,
for a parent.
He's
That's
like,
the
he's not
lead
calling
indicator.
Home for money, He's not in the hospital. He's not sick. So he would always kind of swerve him. And so he would never really tell people how I was doing. And I would tell my dad, I just got a song on this. I got it. He was like, man, I don't know those people.
Yeah.
So one day I call home. Now, mind you, they think I'm still struggling. Mm-hmm. They don't
realize how good you are.
They don't know.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is I call home. They say, hey, Mom, I just got a phone call from somebody. She's like, oh, man, that's so great, Nate. You got a phone call. I'm like, yeah, I got a phone call from somebody. And it's like, it was Luther That's what I heard.
I could hear it.
Now, mind
sure.
you, she's like, no, hold on. Nathan, come get Nathan. She's calling about that. Nathan, come get the phone. Pick up, Sherry, what? Come pick up the phone. It's Nate. So my dad picks up the phone. She was like, what's going on? Nate, are you okay? You in the hospital? Look, you in the hospital?
Yeah.
You need somebody? So I'm like, Dad, Mom, I just got a phone call that Luther Vandross. Oh my goodness! Hold on, Nate. Let's get you. Hold on. We got to get your grandmother on three-way.
Oh my gosh!
So now my grandmother's on three-way, and now I'm like, okay, guys. Luther Vandross has asked his team. I did a song. They're going to put the song on his album. He's even asked me to sing backgrounds. And when I tell you, you would have thought somebody got saved, and the angels was rejoicing. Luther Vandross! Oh my! I mean, it was so big. They was like, "You made it! You made it!" Now I was like, "No, guys, I'm just trying to no, you made it! You made it! This is so good, so much so." My dad Sunday morning went to church. And was like, righteous church of God, one of your very own, Nate Jr. Like I'm in Atlanta, but my cousin called me and told me, he's like, yo, your dad is awesome. Is wildin'.
Yeah.
He was like,
proud
what
father
he
moment,
was just
right?
like,
Bring it to the pulpit.
yeah, he was like, listen, you need to go ahead and get that Luther Vandross out. That wasn't even out yet, but I believe it's going to be cut number 5. That's when you know you old, when you're saying it's cut number 5
Yeah.
on the record.
Yeah.
You know you're not listening to Kirk Franklin when you have your special time with your lady. Go ahead and get that Luther Vandross. So, you know, that's the reason why it has such a near
awesome.
and dear
Yeah.
for me, is because of the joy that it gave to my parents.
That's awesome.
And it just, I will never forget that day.
That's good. Favorite artist?
Okay,
Best artist to work with, maybe not favorite. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Well, you know, I have no issue asking. I have no problem answering even the antithesis of that question. So, favorite artist would probably be. Oh wow, geez, I'm kind of thinking back through. Honestly, it would be a boy band actually from England. They were called Blue,
Okay.
and they okay. In the movie Love Actually,
Yeah.
remember that boy band that was the older singer, and he was trying to get to number 1, but he was going up against this other. It was like a B story kind of in the background. He was going up against another band, and that band is Blue.
Gotcha.
And so Blue was basically, you know, during that time where it was Backstreet, NSYNC,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, 98 Degrees, but they were them overseas, but they were just sold a lot of records. And so I just had a lot of fun running through the streets of London
For
with
sure.
those
That's
guys.
cool. For
and
sure.
then we recorded in London, we recorded in Sweden, we recorded in Denmark.
Oh,
so we
that's
just
awesome.
had an amazing time working with those guys. I know it's not like one of the bigger names, but over there they're massive. But for me, it just was great
good.
time. So you guys can look up Blue.
Okay.
Well, we gotta talk about how you got connected with World Vision, how you got connected with Passion City. I think we need some bridge building in the racial area, so we want to tap into your expertise there. But maybe for both of you guys,
I'm sorry, I got one more music question that
go
I
ahead.
gotta get out of the way. So you're primarily, I mean, you make gospel music, but you're kind of all over. You're a Christian guy, but you make all sorts of different types of music. Yeah.
So I started off honestly, even to this day, 98% of my catalog is secular.
Okay. So how do you find the balance between maybe putting out a song or working on a song that the messaging isn't great? It doesn't align with your values.
Yeah.
But you know it's good. You know it's good and you like it.
It's gonna sell.
And you like
It's gonna
it.
sell.
Right. Not even that it's gonna sell. You like it.
Yeah.
You like it.
Okay, so I love that you asked that question because I have been kind of fortunate to write songs that have been, because you know when you're writing it and you're in that room and you're kind of controlling the atmosphere and how things can kind of go, you kind of have a way of like, you know, steering things to where these songs are everyday conversations. But we can't also shy away from the fact that the Bible is the craziest reality show of all time. I'm talking about like
absolutely.
David, his life.
Yeah.
His life is crazy. So
Abraham.
So you start. So now you're writing songs about life, about people's perspectives.
Yeah.
Like because even behind every song is a character, right? But unfortunately, you don't get a chance to understand how that character got into that space to sing that song. The character of the song. You don't know. But when you're doing a movie and you're looking at character development, you're kind of looking at, okay, well, this character is like that because of XYZ behind it. For instance, Jack the Ripper, this didn't wake up being Jack the Ripper. There was sequences leading up to that. Now, based upon what you're saying, I can control the narrative. However, when I'm doing the track and I'm sending the track out to like rappers or other people, and I'm not writing the song, then it gets a little, I have to change my thinking of okay, well, how do I like my name being attached to this song?
Right.
And this is because I had a long conversation for me, and this is what the Lord was sharing with me, with my conviction. He was sharing with me well, Nate, look at the instance of you sell wood. You're Home Depot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you only sell wood to Christians? Do you only sell wood to, like, I make beats.
Yeah.
And so I don't know who's going to get them.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is it always happens that when here's a good example. The temple was built from the cedars of Lebanon. Them people didn't know God like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they got the wood from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thing is, I know some people are like, oh, that may mess with my theology. But I'm sitting here, I always find it funny that people always want Christians to be aligned in society with only things that are Christian. Basketball players. You don't see basketball players only playing in the Christian basketball league.
Yeah.
You know, you don't. And so for me, I sell the beat.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I'm thankful that that God has put me in a position to where nothing has been too, like,
Cross the line for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
However, I'm like,
there is a line.
There, without a shadow of a doubt, there's a line.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that I haven't had to be on that line. But the way, because for a second I was like, man, I can't sell my beats to these people. And the Lord was like, are you crazy? How are you going to get into the room with them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you going to be able to do all of these things with these people?
Mm-hmm.
And so but this is the thing, he'll grace you what he's called you to. So he's graced me to not be in so many hard, difficult like songs like that. But he's put me in the room with those people, which has been phenomenal. So all that to say is I've kind of skirted a little bit.
Yeah.
But I sell wood.
Yeah.
But there's a line.
Yeah.
But I sell wood.
Makes sense.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So my question was just going to be about Atlanta.
Good question.
About Atlanta. Akon's got a big, ginormous house,
I know
over here. I think the producer for The Time was here in Alpharetta, or the manager for The Time. Whitney Houston was here. You've rattled off a bunch of names. Like, what is it about Atlanta that's doing it for music and the music scene?
I think if you really just want to take it back, you have to give the props to LA and Babyface. I mean, they started it all.
Got it.
I mean, when they came here in the 80s, they could have gone to LA, they could have gone to New York. Those guys were from Minneapolis, and I think Babyface was from someplace. Yeah, they went to South.
Go south.
And were they from Minneapolis? I don't know. But all I know is that they came to Atlanta. And when they came to Atlanta, they were the only record company that you could actually walk into. Like, you could just walk in there. If you were an artist, you could meet with them at the time, and you could try to get a record deal. And so they ended up signing all these people. And then some of the people they signed and had do songs on those albums, they were like, hey, I can do what they do. So then they started building their own things, and they stayed in Atlanta.
Gotcha.
And then what ended up happening was, just over the years, Atlanta just became a hotbed of just creativity. And the reason why the movie business is here is because of the music business.
Yep.
So Dallas Austin, he basically was the one that helped put together this huge package to get the tax credit.
Right.
And then next thing you know, nobody's beating our prices.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now we are the epicenter of culture, and not to mention that, like,
worldwide, we influence everything.
Atlanta
influences everything.
It really,
everything.
And I'm so thankful, because my wife and I are Chicagoans, and she was a Hubbard Street dancer in Chicago, traveled all over the world doing ballet and contemporary and jazz, and we love the cultural scene in downtown Chicago. And when we moved to Georgia, we were like, this isn't going to be good. Right. It's Georgia.
Right.
And we have been thrilled with the scene in it, the cultural scene in Atlanta. And it's been great. It's been great. I think the last podcast we've dropped, Dan, was with Marianne Osborne of World Vision. She's a dear friend of ours. Dan and I went to Ethiopia with her to see the results of some of the water projects that we support here at Giving Company. And that trip was was the catalyst. I'm sure our listeners are rolling their eyes because they've heard me tell this story 800 times. When Dan and I participated in the Interfaith Forum in Mekelle, Ethiopia, where Muslim leaders and Christian leaders got together and worked on projects for child protection, for eliminating child marriage, for reducing divorce, for reducing abuse in the home. And Dan and I were like, this is good Samaritan stuff. Like walking across the road, you're the Jew, they're the Samaritan, they're the Samaritan, you're the Jewish person left by the side of the road. And that was really the catalyst for this podcast. So I think our listeners would love to know, how did this big music producer and writer get involved with World Vision, and what's kind of your shtick around poverty, issues of poverty and the marginalized around the world?
Wow. So let me take this back a little bit to 2010. I am coming off probably one of the worst seasons of my life after the financial crash. And so my wife and I find ourselves in New Zealand. Crazy story how that happened. I'm telling you.
I wake up one day in New Zealand.
I got stories for days. But I'm in New Zealand. It's a divine appointment. And I'm in New Zealand, and we end up being in the backyard of this pastor, and beautiful, and he has a word for us, and he starts saying like, hey guys, this is where we see God is going to take you guys. And we're walking a lot of that stuff now. I say that because he was, during that period of time, I told the Lord yes, that I was going to stop playing around and I was going to preach. 2010. Just something I said with inward. I was like, Lord, you going to have to do it. I'm not posting nothing. This is all you. Right? So 2010, I said, okay, I'm going to do it. Didn't tell nobody. Now, mind you, I was forced to preach in New Zealand. That's a whole nother story. But when I did, 10 people came to know the Lord and 2 atheists. That night was like, okay, Lord, you show me.
Yeah.
Now, we end up at Passion about a year later. And that story was dramatic, how that happened. And everything is dramatic with me. Everything. Okay. So that was, wow, how that happened.
Yeah.
We get there, sit in the back for about a year, go early, leave late.
Yep.
Let me come late, leave early, in the back, the whole nine. We end up getting hooked up with the team with another wild story. But we end up helping start the college ministry there.
Awesome.
So when we started, it was like 50 people. And at the time was Daniel Carson with Chris Tomlin's band at the time. And literally at the time, I was just holding open the door for people, sitting in the floor, listening. And then years later, it ended up to where we ended up helping lead it from 50 people to, at the peak, like 2,000.
Yeah.
Now, what ends up happening between that time, about 3 years ago, I remember second semester is always hard during college ministry, always hard, because you got finals you're dealing with, you got midterms, finals, and spring break.
Yeah.
And all the schools are different in all of that. So in that, I remember the week before I was over top of Georgia State, Morehouse, Spelman, Clark, Clayton State. So all those are schools
for Passions college ministry.
Right, that I was responsible for. And so I remember the week before, it was 200 people sitting there, 200 in my space, right? And then the next week, you would just see it go up and down. And then like about 2 weeks later, it was like 20. And I remember in that time, I was weeping. Now, y'all better not tell nobody this. But wait, I want to. I really feel like I'm talking to y'all.
Luck.
But keep it in there. But it was true. You can see my heart towards the Lord. I was weeping. And I was like, Lord, you know what? I was like, I said yes to you late. I said yes late. Now, of course, with God, he's perfect timing. But for me, I was like, Lord, I said yes to you late because I remember when I was 18, you was chasing me for this. I remember 2005, Lord, when I was driving down Sunset and I had you whispered, and I was like, I said yes late. And I was like, but, you know, I've been doing this for a while. And I was like, look, you know, I will preach like I'm in front of Madison Square Garden. It doesn't matter if it's 2 people. I will share your goodness. And I remember saying like, man, Lord, it was 200 people and now it's like 20. And I was like, you know, you start looking inward the whole night. You want to bear Jesus's cross, but not the one he gave you. You know what I mean? You want to put the wrong stuff on you.
Yeah.
And so I remember saying, Lord, if you could open us some doors where I could preach at a summer camp, a youth camp or something like that. I was like, I'd be forever grateful. Forever grateful. And I remember that. Then next thing you know, now mind you, I had preached in South Africa, California, different other places. But for some reason, that particular day, I was just like, oh, man. So I remember praying that prayer maybe like February. That March, actually about a couple weeks later, I'm at an event called Young Guns in Denver, and I was tapped to be a young gun where they bring in future communicators who they feel like are going to have basically an impact on culture and generations. And they bring in young guns and they'll bring in sages and they pair us with sages. So it was like Pastors of Mosaic there and like Ken Costa was there. Like,
one of our authors. Yeah.
Ken Costa's there. Peb Jackson. I mean, all these amazing people were there speaking into us because they're like, hey, you guys are the future. So I go there, you know, and I'm just like, Lord, this is amazing that I'm here. Thank you, you know. So I just having fun, meeting everybody, enjoying. It was a 3-day trip. We horseback riding. We doing stuff that I just don't like doing. And so, but it was fun. But, you know, it's a little stretching me. So, you know, we're out there. And so the last day, we're on the shuttle, one of the shuttles to leave to go back to the airport. So we're in there, a couple pastors, we just laughing and joking, you know, just being guys. And then we get to the gate because I'm passing through security. And one of the guys that's beside me, we're going to the same gate, and he says, and our planes were both delayed. So we sat there, we grabbed a meal at the food court. And he says to me, man, you know what, Nate? I've just been watching you this whole trip, man. He was just like, you just walk into a room and he was like, everything changes. He's like, and people laughing and people are joking. Then he said, then you go deep. And he was just like, man, it's just amazing. And he was like, I work for a organization called World Vision. And I say, oh man, that's cool. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what World Vision was. I was like, that's great.
Right on.
I'm like, yeah, that's really good, man. Let me tell you who I'm casting right now. Do you sing?
Yeah.
Put you on the show. You know, so he's like, yeah, man, I work for this organization called World Vision. And he begins to tell me about World Vision. And then he says, you know, there was an email that went out across the company about 6 months ago, and they were looking for a communicator. A certain team was looking for a communicator. And at the time, I'm on the church team, and I didn't know. Now, he was an executive for the church team. You know, we have all these different teams at World Vision. He says, I believe you are the person that is supposed to fulfill that position. And I said, wait, you've never heard me talk before or communicate before? He was like, well, first of all, you're at Young Guns. He said, but second of all, I have a strong unction from the Holy Spirit that it's you. Now you talking my language. You start talking about unctions and holy. I'm like, okay, let me see what you're saying. Let me test the Spirit. So he's like, would you be interested in something like that? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And it started a progression where the next week I was in Nashville meeting with someone from the artist team, and we were at a place called Pinewood Social, having lunch, and he says, man, you are what Kurt said. And they offered me the position after talking to me for twice.
Wow.
And
was it Kurt Ron?
Yeah, it was Kurt.
You're kidding.
It was Kurt.
So I think I stalked you on Insta yesterday.
I love
and
it.
I
Hope
saw
you
that,
like some stuff.
And I saw that Kurt followed you.
Yeah.
And he is a dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
Indiana grad, Dan. I always bring up I'm an Indiana grad. So anyway, he is awesome.
It was Kurt.
Shout out to Kurt Ron.
Shout out to Kurt.
Wow.
So Kurt was the one, and
Unbelievable.
He was like, he handpicked me out of a crowd, and then now another guy, I'm meeting with him, and then next thing you know, I'm learning about world vision. I'm learning about the heart of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm learning about the heart of God, the widow, the orphan,
Yeah.
the poor. I'm just like, whoa. And now I'm going to be honest with you. For me, I had a really special place for the poor because I was poor. Mm-hmm. It was a time in my life.
That'll do it, right? That'll do it.
Oh, yeah. It was 2 times in my life where I'm talking about Poe, couldn't afford the OR. I was Poe. So I understood what it meant to believe God for the light bill. I understood what it meant to open up the refrigerator and say, I remember my sister, it got to the point my sister had sent me a bag of beans. And she was like, Nate, and she didn't even know how much I needed it because, I was real silent at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I was touched by that infirmity. When, when it talks about we have a high priest that has been, there's no infirmity. I knew what people were going through. Just like Jesus knows what we're all going through because he also walked through it. There was a connection with me. Now, it wasn't the extreme poverty that I have seen in places.
Yeah.
But now, the reason why I told that first story about that prayer was because it was maybe 4 months later that I was in front of crowds of 10, 15,000 proclaiming the good news of the gospel. Mm. And they allowed me to do that. They allowed me to talk about poverty, and they allowed me to talk about orphans and the widow, but they also allowed me to preach the gospel in my own way and connect it to what
it was
doing.
Almost a better answer to your prayer.
It was like,
right?
It was crazy.
Like you're thinking, hey, I'm probably going to wind up, and nothing against youth camps, right?
Yeah,
youth camps are good, or I might wind up behind the pulpit of a church. Yep. But this was probably a better answer to your prayer than you were envisioning when you were praying it.
So, but that is, I'm telling you, that is, I will do exceedingly and abundantly. And then he put me on, and it started off just with putting me on tour with artists.
Yeah.
So,
well, there you go.
So like Travis Green, the next thing you know, go from Travis Green to I'm on tour with Sugarland. Mm. So I'm actually proclaiming the gospel on a Sugarland country tour. Shout out to them.
That's great.
But then only being the only black person in the building, that was wild.
I have no idea who Sugarland is. I don't know anything about country.
You
know that? I don't know anything about country.
So I was afraid your question was going to be, what's your favorite style of music, Nate? And we were going to get on a conversation about our respective 3 favorite styles. Yeah. And I was going to have to say country in front of the two of you, and it was going to be really hard.
So like, shout out to them. Like they were great. And,
that's awesome.
And now that position at World Vision has allowed me to morph and grow into so many different areas, to where even during this pandemic, God allowed me to bring into the Southeast region the first World Vision hub with New Birth Baptist Church. And we was able to bring in to where we have fed from May till now 500,000 families.
Wow. Yeah. That's so awesome. Good.
Every week with so it's from, so I got my hands kind of a lot of things at World Vision, from the education team really to the church team to the artist team.
Well, and, PSA on this, because this is probably something our listeners have heard a few times, and Dan and I talk about this a lot. Kitty Murray from Refuge Coffee
Kitty, that's my homie.
Was with us a few weeks ago.
She's sweet. I love Kitty.
I said, you know what? I got to be honest. As a believer, relatively young in my life, kind of high school, youth group ministry.
Yep.
My wife and I ultimately got baptized, I think, in the mid-'90s as adults. But I kind of was following how big is the church that I go to, how solid is the teaching, how robust is the music ministry, do they do other arts like drama and dance? And I sit here now as a 53-year-old man, like those were the wrong criteria.
Yeah.
Who's serving the poor, widows, orphans, who's doing things around the world. And maybe the Baptists had it right, to some extent with all their missionary work, back in the day. But my view of what my faith means has completely changed.
Yeah.
And I think World Vision really has been a big part of that. And Dan and I have seen communities without clean water.
Yep.
And then we see the community with clean water, and it is night and day.
Yep.
And for our listeners who support our giving memberships, because that's what's now given over 6,500 people clean water in Africa, we are so grateful for what you do, because it is so meaningful.
Amen to that.
So good for you for your World Vision work.
Yeah, we're the number one clean water provider in the world.
Yeah.
So I just hearing you talk about that.
We love it.
Your heart makes it really connects.
So I'm gonna talk about passion for a second, and it's gonna go a direction that's probably gonna be a little bit of a surprise.
Yep.
But bear with me. Bear with me on this. So first of all, both of my kids have had their experience at the Passion Conference be truly life-changing, heart-changing. So that conference, which serves college kids, I think they come from 20 states or 30 states, will come to Atlanta for the...
All the states.
All the states?
And now they're coming from
And we were going to do one. We were going to do one in Brooklyn, right? But that got canceled, I think, because of COVID. But for your work with the college ministry at Passion, Nate, on behalf of my children, one who just graduated from college, one who's still at Georgia, just truly grateful for that ministry. It is phenomenal.
Thank you.
So, but I want to talk about Jimmy Cravity for a second.
Oh yeah, it's funny. I talked to Jimmy yesterday.
Yeah, so
I literally talked to Jimmy yesterday.
Yeah, so I love him to death. My first Passion Conference, he sang "You Are."
Yep.
And I was over the moon. I mean, I was blown away. Jimmy's been here in our office. He's played us some music. He's been on our podcast. He posted a letter to Passion City Church, or maybe to Louis, and I'm not trying to poke at Louis or the church, but said, hey, I was there for 8 years.
Yeah.
I never heard one story about racial injustice in my 8 years there. And I think I didn't take that as a poke at Louis or Passion. I took it as a poke at the, let's call it the evangelical white church. And I hate even kind of using those terms, because I feel like evangelicals are trying to get their act together with help from really good people like Tony Evans and Lee Jenkins and you and Sam Collier, et cetera. But you're a bridge builder.
Yeah.
People call you a bridge builder. Where's the bridge to be built in the church around racial unity and racial reconciliation? Because I think Jimmy had something to say.
Yeah, you know what? I think the best way to put it is, let me go to John 4, woman at the well. I think it's a great...
Samaritan woman at the well, right?
Go.
So
there you go.
Love this story.
I think that there's so much to be said.
Yeah.
Because most people talk about race, they usually go to the Good Samaritan story. You don't hear them go to the woman at the well story. So we all know.
It's probably fair, right, Dan? That's the story that we use.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah.
So, what happens is that we all know why the Jews and Samaritans didn't get along. I mean, that beef is so crazy. It's like the history of that beef is so nuts. But in a nutshell, let me just throw on one side of it. An Assyrian and a Jewish person make a Samaritan, right? That's what a Samaritan is. Now, forward years later...
We're not going to describe the picture anymore for our listeners. Just know the Assyrian and the Jewish person make a Samaritan.
Make a Samaritan, right? So now when the Jewish people get liberated again, and they can go back to Israel because the tribes were scattered. I think it was the Persians that actually conquered everybody and let them come back in. The Jewish people were like, who are y'all people up there? And they're like, we your cousins. And they was like, we not your cousins. Like, no, we don't know y'all. They're like, no. Like, and the Jewish people didn't like them. Let's just go ahead and call it what it is, because they called them half-breeds. So they were like, no. For what God is going to do through us, it's got to be pure lineage, right? So they were like, no, we can't mess with y'all. And on top of that, y'all established those 2 temples. They were still holding on to so much stuff.
Like, we think your temple's bad. You won't help us build our temple.
Exactly.
Like, there's all this crazy stuff.
And it was the 2 golden calves that Jeroboam, whatever his name, had built. Like, the whole thing was crazy. And this is after years and years and years that they was holding on to this grudge. So at this point, you had in Jerusalem, which David had set up as the political capital, and the religious capital.
Yeah, that's it.
Right?
Yep.
So now you have Jesus at the well with the Samaritan woman who first recognizes, not just because of gender, that y'all don't mess with me, but they also know the racial implication of why they don't mess with me. Then they bring into the worship part. So now you got racial, gender, religion because of who worships where, and political.
I knew you were going to say it.
You already know where I'm going. And you got political.
I mean, think of our last 4 days.
Think of the last. This. And when people try to say the Bible ain't relevant, they tripping.
Yeah.
So now
that's so good.
You have Jesus sitting down in the midst of all of that.
Yeah.
Now Jesus is saying Jesus got that slick talk. He's like, if you knew who you was talking to, you know what I'm saying, you can get that word
he
from
totally
me.
did.
You
he
get
totally
that word
did.
from me. And she's sitting there like, bruh, listen. Now here's the key. She's like, give me this water so I don't got to make this trip up here in the hot sun, because basically the reason why I'm coming up here in the hot sun is because I don't want to come up here when everybody else is coming up here simply because
they make fun of me.
They make fun of me, blah, 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 blah. She's already low on the totem pole, even in a civilization, a culture that's low on the totem pole, even in a town that's called Sychar, which actually means the end. So in this whole situation, she's just low. And so Jesus is sitting there. She's like, man, what are you talking about? Like, give me the water so I don't got to come up here again. So mind you, she doesn't understand Jesus. So you got somebody from another race talking to somebody from another race. And she don't understand what the other one has to offer, right? But check this out. Just because she didn't understand did not mean that Jesus left the conversation.
Yeah.
He stayed in the conversation. And too many of us are having these hard conversations, and we will leave the well because I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand what you're saying. So you know what? I'm out. I'm leaving. So what Jesus does then, he's like, you know what? She doesn't understand this thing. So maybe let me go from another angle so she'll understand. Because Jesus already knew what was going on. So let me go to another angle. Then he starts saying, hey, well, go get your husband. Then they go into the whole thing. But what I love about it is that he says, go get your husband. And she's like, well, I don't have one. He's like, and
he knew it was a trick question.
He already knew. He knew it was a trick question. And he runs down the whole thing. The husband you got now, 5 guys, and the guy you with right now. And so and the guy you have right now is not your husband. Now, this is another thing. What I've realized when you're having the hard conversation at the table, when you're faced with the truth, how will you respond? She said, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
When you're faced with the truth of what you've done and who you've been with, or the things that you've said, the places that you were wrong. Maybe the things
you've thought.
The things that you thought.
Maybe just the things that stayed in your mind.
How will you respond? Will you say, no, that's not me? And you get up from the well? Guess what? Now she stays at the well. Now you have relationship through proximity being made because you are willing to stay at the well and have and talk about the hard conversations. And not just that, take responsibility for who you are and what you've done. Right? But this is the thing. We got to remember this. The disciples could not have had this conversation at the well. Because first of all, when they came later on, they were like, yo, what you talking to her for? Like because know why they couldn't have it? Because they had too much bias in their life.
Yeah.
So they would have came to the well with bias, with a racist agenda. And we don't like to say that, but quite honestly, it was people are coming to the table with agendas that are already saying, I don't really like what you're doing anyway. So guess what? All that goes to say is this. Jesus has to lead the conversation first. Jesus has to lead the conversation.
Yeah, that's good.
How? How does he do that in this context? He does it in this context. Now, we're talking about kingdom. Because at the end of the day, a revival started off and they all became kingdom people, right? But kingdom. So when we're talking to kingdom-minded people, Jesus, because guess what? The disciples were kingdom people, but they couldn't lead the conversation because Jesus wasn't going to be at the top of their thinking. So when we enter these conversations, we got to say, what does Jesus think about it? And so we're like, so when you're going there, are you praying? Have you said, Lord, I'm about to sit here. Can you, Holy Spirit, can you lead and guide me in the way that I should go in this conversation? Jesus, lead this conversation.
Yeah.
And so when you make Jesus lead the conversation, guess what? You can have an open conversation knowing why? Because Jesus loves both people sitting at that spot.
Yeah.
And also, he's the one that can break up the fallow ground in our heart. Now, that happens. Her thinking gets changed. Now, how do we know that? I love to look at it like this. You got the vessel. She comes to the well with a vessel and she leaves it. So the thing that she's been coming to back and forth, over the years, having one mode of thinking of why she goes to that well, that vessel represents an old way of thinking because she leaves it at the well. And guess what? She becomes a new vessel. Now she becomes the vessel. And she begins to tell people about somebody that does, look, check this is awesome. She begins to tell people that look like her about somebody that does not look like her. How they changed her way of thinking. So we have to leave the well and go back and tell somebody that looks like us. Hey, I met a white guy. He ain't like, I met a black guy. He ain't like, I met a... And what happens is you start to change.
So good.
You start to change the narrative. And now those people are like, I need to come meet this guy. Then the town came out and met with them. Now proximity and change is happening in that space. So in the church, you build it. You build it by Jesus leading the conversation.
Yep. Willing to hear the truth.
Willing to hear. Well, I would say when you don't understand each other first, stay at the well.
Yeah.
Then when you're confronted with the truth, how will you respond? Will you repent? If my people shall call out my name, seek thy face, turn from their wicked ways, repent, then, and we can do that at the well. That's how you build a bridge. But you have to be very sensitive. And this is the thing that I love. Jesus came willing to have a conversation. But guess what? She came expectant because she said, I know a Messiah's coming. So she was already in some way, shape, or form expecting something to shift. So she had already come to that well with an expectation, whether it was going to be at the well, whether it was going to be in her village, whether it was going to be in a mountain. She knew a Messiah was coming. So you got to come to the well knowing that a change could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I feel the Holy Ghost, boy.
It's good.
So that's how you build. And just for the record, I'm not going to lie, me and Louis have talked numerous amounts of times over the years, we've had many well conversations.
Yeah.
Many.
Yeah.
Shout out to LG.
Yeah.
You know, we've had many conversations.
He's not a Georgia fan, so if you could maybe work on that one a little bit. He was on the podcast and he made it very clear he was not a Georgia fan.
Nah, you know.
So this is a cool conversation. So
Yeah.
I want to keep going
Let's
little
go.
bit. So proximity,
Yeah.
go to the well. Mm-hmm. Stay there.
Stay there.
Particularly when you're confronted with the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Here's been some of my observations, and I think I think in Sam Collier's book, A Greater Story, I think he mentioned the proximity term. I don't know that the church is great at that.
Nah.
Right? I mean, it seems like the African American churches are doing pretty phenomenal work around racial justice, and maybe some of the white evangelical churches are at least better listeners now, at least staying at the well. But man, it sure feels like there aren't a lot of worship environments where they truly are together.
Yeah.
So proximity, I think, is important. One of the things that I've learned from you, Tony Evans, Lee Jenkins, Sam Collier, Derek Hawkins, one is your willingness to sit with people like me, right?
Yeah.
You're 50-year-old white evangelical. I don't like that identity. I don't think I would necessarily identify myself that way, but society would definitely put me in that category, right? They're like, David, you are the prototypical white evangelical.
If you have khakis, you probably
So your guys' willingness to let me ask some tough questions and all that. And you know, sometimes when it gets political, I will ask questions like, well, gosh, I thought the First Step Act was a good piece of legislation for improving prison reform. Yeah. I thought that wage growth was sort of a good thing. Not saying I necessarily support that administration or not, but like, are you able to look at some of these things through truth lenses? I find that I get better answers from you, Sam, Lee, Tony, and it's some of the white people who say, David, shut up. You can't ask that question. You know what I mean? Like, how do you stay at the well? How do you think about the well? And I don't even like the political lens, right? Because it's so broken, I think, in this country. But why is it maybe that you, Lee, Sam, Derek, Dr. Evans are better at these conversations? Yeah. And being willing to let people like me sort of try to understand, have you give us truth.
Well, I think it has everything to do, first, speaking to all those guys you named. I know, me personally, I know that God has, how he raised me and the situations that he put me in, he's allowed me to understand and to see all sides of the spectrum. Meaning, now I'm not talking about political sphere right now. Let's just talk about people's sphere.
Yeah. Better sphere.
Yeah. So so growing up until 5, all black community, still all black church, whole 9. Then we moved to majority white neighborhood. Only 2, like 3 black people in my whole school, pretty much, in my grade. So, but my black experience was church and family.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm getting that from. Yeah. So I'm learning that system. Then the other system, I'm learning how to matriculate through white society and culture, being like, it was crazy.
I'll bet.
It was crazy, but you know, but for the most part, kids are kids. Kids are nice and awesome, but you know, they could be mean. Sometimes they just mean because they just see something. Sometimes they mean because they heard a family member say something.
Sure,
So you know, kind of growing up in that and learning how to speak 2 languages.
Yep.
I mean,
That's good.
mean, learning how to speak two languages, learning what makes people uncomfortable. I mean, and so now, and that was white suburbia, almost like Alpharetta, where we are here.
Yeah.
And then learning too, not all white people are bad. I mean, seriously, like, you know, because I say that in a space of when you're growing up and your grandmother and your parents were in the civil, they remember. They had to sit in the back of the bus. They remember different water fountains. They remember Emmett Till. They remember that. And so, but at the same time, you know, we moved to a certain space at the time because of schools, the whole nine. And so it's not as if any black parent like sets off to be like, you know, white people are like bad, you know what I mean? But it's always like, I got my good eye out. You know what I mean? Growing up, you kind of like, you got your good eye out.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is with me being in that school environment, my guard was down for a lot because even though I still had my good eye out because it was so crazy stuff happening, but I began to judge people for people individually.
Yeah.
And of course, that's because of my experience of how I was growing up. Now, you get older, you start realizing that then I can start going to schools more mixed environments, and you know, and then you start meeting wealthy people, people that are middle class, people that are poor. All throughout my matriculation, all throughout high school, right? And now I go to a all African American school, HBCU, Morehouse, you know, and I fit in because I'm still immersed. I mean, the black church culture is incredible, you know. So I'm still immersed. So now I'm speaking multiple languages of culture.
Yeah.
And now what ends up happening is I've met you. I met you when I was 8. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
So like, so me talking to you, I've met the same person when I was 8 years old. I met the same person when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
I don't shy away from the well because I've met you before.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I know that true at the well, some people may come with contention, but I've faced contention before. And the Lord has graced me with putting me inside of places, and even in the music business, you know, being in front of executives and boardrooms, you know, knowing how to speak that talk.
Yeah.
So I can sit at the well with a billionaire.
Yeah.
And I can talk, and we can talk sensibly. And you can gauge subtle nuance
You've had
too.
more opportunities to do this, to have this well conversation.
But check this out. I didn't know God was preparing me to have it.
Yeah.
I just thought I was just living life. This is just my life experience.
Yeah.
Listen, nobody wants, I'm not trying to be funny, guys. Like, nobody wants to be that guy. Nobody wants to be the guy that sits there and tells people like, oh, like, we need to, nobody wants to be the race guy. Like, I'm just, and that's just the truth. Like, if you, I mean, I think it's a burden that God puts on you. Like, people will complain about it, but people will be like Twitter and Instagram gangsters, but you know, you don't see that's not something that like people are, if you have a burden for it, then God is calling you for it. But the majority of people, they'll just complain about it and nobody really wants to, like, you don't wake up saying, I want to go to the well and have this conversation. That's not something that, like, you know, people will say, like, Nate, you're equipped for it. But I'm like, man, that's not something that I would just, like, want to wake up one day and be like, man, you a racist, but, you know, I love you. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you need to have it. That's not, I don't find glory out of that.
It's exposure to the spectrum. You're just around everyone.
There you go.
Yeah. The thing that keeps hitting me over the head, Lee Jenkins talked about a relationship that he has with, I don't know, 8 or 10 white guys in Roswell that were all wealthy and all said that he should run for mayor. And it's funny when he told the story, like, I walked into the room and he's like, none of them look like me. And they're like, Lee, we think you're the guy to run for mayor and help Roswell kind of moved forward. Tony Evans said that the guy that got him on the radio was Dr. Dobson. I'm like, what? That can't be right. And he's like, no, we had a relationship. Dr. Dobson said I should be on the radio. I was equipped for it.
Yep.
And he helped make it happen. May have been Sam, but one of our guys said it was Martin Luther King's relationship with President Kennedy.
Yeah.
They had a relationship, and that's what caused progress to happen. Am I on track here? I mean, to me, I personally didn't see all these things that I probably should have been seeing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to blame it on the church that I went to or, you know, the town that I grew up in, which was relatively diverse or whatever. I'll just sin, whatever, you know, it is what it is. But my ability to have real conversations with you all has been a huge difference maker. And this has been in the last 12 months. I mean, I went and sat with Lee at Eagles Nest Church after a little blow up about the Kirk Franklin thing and the Dove Awards and CBN. And he talked me through it. And I'm like, oh, like, wow, I didn't know that. But you're not going to get it on Twitter.
Nah.
You're not going to get it on Facebook.
Nah.
It comes from conversations like this.
You know, I say all the time, like, if the disciples, depending on what news cycle they was reading, they would have been too lit to have a conversation at the well. Depending on, like, depending on, like, on any given day. I don't care what news cycle it is. Like we got to be in that word cycle. You know what I mean? Like, you'll just be too lit. You coming in just like
you
just coming in too hot.
Chip on your shoulder.
You know, like now we need passion because God uses our passion. He uses our passion, but to come and to engage, and guess what? It's gonna be some hard times. Like you're gonna be want to leave. You're gonna get up. You're like But you know what though? But the more you stay, you'll start. If you're willing. The more you stay, if you're willing, you know, and because at the end of the day, God's coming. He's coming for spotless, wrinkle-free, like the whole nine. Like, he coming. I like to put static-free in there, too. You know, coming in for static-free. You know, it's not going to be no beef. You know, so he coming back for us. So it's going to happen. I think we are. The thing I love about COVID.
I have not heard those words spoken. I'm anxious to hear what comes after that statement.
This is what I love about COVID. COVID, and I say that because I had it, and God, you know, he miraculously told you everything with me is dramatic. He miraculously got me over that. But, but what COVID does, it actually squeezes the breath out of your body. Like, it's really just squeezes it, right? But when COVID hit the world, when something is squeezed, you see what comes out of it.
Yeah.
So when COVID hit and America was squeezed, you saw what came out. And God will use all of it for his glory. All of it. And some people, when they saw what came out, they wasn't ready to answer that hard truth. They weren't ready to answer to that hard truth. Some ran away from it. Some fumbled it a little bit, but they got back on the horse. Some was like, yeah, that's me. When they saw what came out, when they saw what was faced in front of them. And so I'm thankful that God used this season to bring a new awareness of the whole body to be like, hey, this is an issue. Some are picking it up. Some are putting it back down. But you know what, though? Like, it's all, like, God is moving and he's working, and he's really working in Gen X, which is crazy. Like, Gen X scared me at first. I mean, Gen Z. Gen Z scared me at first. Like, they was eating Tide Pods earlier this year. But what God showed me, though, was like, hey, Nate, they're fearless, but they have no direction. Somebody that pops a Tide Pod and wants to, that shows you they're fearless. But imagine if it's directed. if it's directed, my God, you started seeing they're on the front lines. You see everything changing. So
agree with that.
So I
agree with that.
So I'm thankful that I get a chance to speak into the lives of Gen Xers and.
I want to ask about your experience as a Latino growing up.
Go ahead.
But before I do that, one of the things, so maybe latching onto this thing I like about COVID, I believe, so my son is a Gen Zer. He does not like learning online. He does not like being secluded. Maybe it will get us out of this. We think that posting on Facebook or virtual conversations or a tweet are actually moving the heart of people, because it's not.
Nah.
It's relationship. It's proximity. You can't do that online. It doesn't work. And so maybe once we get a little freer with vaccine or whatever it might be, people will remember how miserable it was relationally when we were in quarantine, when we were secluded.
Yeah. I think the only thing, I think it intrigues people to want to get to know you.
Yeah.
I think if you use it in the right way, but at the same time, if you coming in too hot all the time, like people not. I mean, like,
I guess that could happen in person and online as well, right?
Yeah.
It sure seems people are more comfortable being on fire online, right?
I'm telling you, they gangster fingers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they out here, they real bold.
Yeah.
You can't get punched in the face online.
Exactly.
yeah,
the only thing you
that's
can do is block and mute.
Yeah.
But like, you can have somebody someplace trolling you. You know what I mean? And you just like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
That's wild. What you want to know about the Latin experience? What you wanna
Well,
know?
just contrast it with Nate's. Compare and contrast your experience.
You got to add the element of immigrant in there.
Yep.
So I grew up in a pretty like diverse high school. It's a melting pot. I had every type of friend.
In Atlanta.
Yeah, outside of Gwinnett, North Atlanta, Gwinnett.
Yeah.
Oh, you went to North Atlanta?
Yeah, North Side. No, Gwinnett.
Okay,
Gwinnett.
got you,
Gwinnett
got
went
you.
out there, yeah. So I kind of had like every type of friend. I had really poor friends. I had really rich friends. I had Spanish friends. I had black friends. I had white friends. But you grow up, you have a white voice that you put on when you go to the world, when you're with your friends. And then when you're at work, any minority has that. You have two, you have the way that you think, and then you have the way that you have to express yourself to white people. You know what I mean? Or really just the people in control, whoever's, who's ever the authority, the principal, the boss, where, it's just different. And then you have this other thing where, like, man, when I meet like Colombians who like came over here a little later, I'm never Latin enough for them. I'm never Latin. I'm way too American. And it's like a weird thing, like being Latin, because like you grow up and like you kind of almost like idolize the black image a little bit because it was the closest thing to us on television. You know what I mean? We didn't really have like the Latin heroes, so we saw like rappers when I was like, that feels more like me than anything else. So now you're not really like all the way black because you're Latin, so you're kind of still weird in that environment. And then you're not black to white people, so you're like this other thing, And then you come back home and you're almost too black for your Latin people. Like, it's kind of like that. Like, so it's just a really weird thing. There's this saying in Spanish that is ni de aquí ni de allá. And that means not from here and not from there. So it's like, where are you really from? So
But
it's just like a weird culture. It's like
on one of our conversations, I mean, I've learned from you.
Yeah.
You're the thing I've learned from you has been, hey, David, let me give you a couple examples from here at work.
Yeah.
Let me give you a couple examples from me growing up where a white person probably didn't intend this to be what it was, but let me play it black for you.
I love that.
And I'm like,
let me play it.
And I'm like, oh, like that doesn't sound good. Now that you play it back for me, it doesn't sound good at all.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And the reason that, going back to what you said, is you grew up so diverse. You grew up in both communities. I grew up around everything. So then you meet somebody who like, maybe just grew up in Alpharetta and like didn't have like all sorts of different friends growing up. It's like you don't even realize what you're saying sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you came across this way and you didn't even mean to. So it's like, it's kind of like, since I know better, I can't really be too mad at you. I'm not going to like it, but it's the fact that you just don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I have to have those conversations on like both sides. I mean, I don't think I know too many people who are exposed to the extreme, and I'm talking about extreme spectrum of people that I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like I have literally every type of person in my life.
I would,
And I don't think I can put them all
I
in the
would
same
venture
room.
to say that my spectrum is probably not as wide as yours. That would
Yeah.
be my.
Yeah. I mean, it's just extreme. It's just extreme.
Yeah.
Extreme.
Yeah.
It's very extreme.
Yeah.
Even,
Good
I mean,
for you.
you know, I work for a Christian company. That's extreme in its own, in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To people who aren't religious, that's very extreme. To my friends who are not,
Yeah.
they think that is insane that I work for a religious company. So it's just, you know,
Yeah.
but I like it that way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
you go.
I like every different type of person.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I can almost like, David, I can see your exact replica in a dude who's made some serious different life choices.
Yeah.
But you guys are the same person. Besides, like, I mean, not the same environment, not the same elements, but I'm like, no, dude, they're the same guy.
Yeah.
They both like sports the same way.
Yeah.
They both,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just like, you know, the same but different. So
There you go. There you go.
Well, Nate, this has been awesome. How long we been chatting?
hour and 34 minutes.
Outstanding.
I love that. Like, man, I
So-
hope we don't end up on the cutting floor. This is a
So-
good combo.
That was good.
Yeah.
If you could, you've given us kind of a fresh perspective on the Samaritan thing.
Yeah.
Because we've always been talking about the guy who walked across the road, bandaged him up, put him in the inn, paid him for 2 days to get well, paid the innkeeper 2 days for the Jewish person to get well. And the priest and the Levite don't look very good in the story. And spiritual hypocrisy is a theme throughout the Bible, you know, and hypocrisy in general, I think, is one of those reasons I don't get too caught up in the political game, because I tell people all the time, boy, if you give up your identity for a political party, be prepared to get burned, because it's going to happen.
Yep.
Or be prepared to lose your credibility. Like one of those things. Anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. All that being said, I'd love for you to leave our listeners with your last bit of advice on, they may not have had the benefit of your experience growing up. Dan, they may not have had the benefit of your diversity of relationships. How can they be better Good Samaritans in the U.S. today, which is a pretty crazy place to be right now?
Man, you know, it's one of those things for now. Like, I feel during this period of time in my life, God has me speaking to the kingdom. Like, even though I work in these secular environments, and just as a footnote, the creative secular environment, man, they don't have no issue with this.
Yeah, they don't.
Like, it's so bizarre. It's no issue. It's no issue.
Yeah.
However, the church, there is a huge issue with this. There is. I'm gonna look on my phone, because I want to make sure that I actually get this particular scripture right, and I think this will be appropriate for this. The scripture is Romans 15:5. I think this is the Passion Translation version. Now may God, the source of great endurance and comfort, grace you with unity among yourselves, which flows from your relationship with Jesus, the Anointed One. I think a lot of what's happening, we're not spending time with Jesus.
Yeah.
Period. You spending time with Jesus on Sunday, when your pastor's preaching, and for some of those who still go to churches back in the day that had programs, you put that program in your Bible, you put that Bible in your back seat, and you use what they had that Sunday for the rest of the week. Then you go get recharged on the next Sunday. And clearly, that's no way to function as a believer.
Yeah.
What we are facing is a word problem. And clearly, I'm going to read this again, Romans 15:5. Now may God, the source of great endurance and comfort, that'll preach all within itself, grace you with unity. So it means there has to be a grace.
Yeah.
It's a grace. Grace you with unity among yourselves. Now check this out. The way he graces it to you is through your relationship that flows from Jesus. And when you are in true proximity with Jesus at the well, then you are equipped to go tell somebody else about somebody that don't look like you,
Yeah.
to fix a problem. The issue is people not in their word. People aren't in relationship with Jesus. I'm so tired of a generation that knows every word to every worship song, but they don't know the word. They don't know about that. You know, Jesus, he died to give us access to the Father. People don't know, they don't know the difference between what the Holy Spirit does. They don't know the difference of Jesus. They don't know that Jesus came to give us access to the Father. Like, he came to give us access to the Father. Some of us are in, and I don't want to get into theological stuff, but like, they just don't know the word. And Jesus has to lead our conversations. He has to lead it. We got to have relationship with Jesus. And the Father stamps that. The Father stamps it. And he's like, yo, I'm about to grace you with this. So I'm speaking to the church right now. Get your word up.
Yeah.
Get your Bible up. Stop trying to put your own armor on. That's the problem, man. People out here trying to put their own armor on with stats and all this stuff. That's the world's armor. Put the armor of God on. Put that armor on. The shield of faith.
Yeah.
No, it's not your faith. It says it's the armor of God. It's his faithfulness is a shield. When money has failed, his faithfulness has been a shield.
Yeah.
Put his armor on. So get your relationship up with Jesus. Wake up in the morning, pray, read your Bible, spend more than 5 minutes with him. You got time? You on Facebook posting all the crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fasting thing, right? Dan and I have learned that over the last year, how important that is as a practice.
And I'm gonna be real with you. Some of the fasting was forced fasting. So I didn't have enough food sometimes to eat. So I was like, Lord, I'm just gonna call this a fast. I'm gonna get something out of it.
Kill two birds with one stone right here.
So I'm like, fast. So I am I'm thankful for that question. Like I said, I know at this point, like, I'm trying to talk to the church.
Yeah.
Get us straight.
That's the message.
I'm gonna do a fast soon.
Man,
It's good.
That's your.
It's good.
I want to plan it so that I'm not around people, so that I'm not like super irritable.
Yeah,
you know
but you
what I
just
mean?
told
Like,
me, so that's your reward.
I get irritable. I did a 21 day.
Did you get that, David?
Yeah. I did.
But you should do it. You should do it, though. It's good.
Shout out to our friend Matt Brown.
Yeah, Matt.
He got me on a 21 dayer. And it was, I did what you did, no television.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a stronghold for me that I needed to throw out. So I did no TV. I did no meat, no bread, no sugar, which included candy, which is tough for me.
Some gummy bears.
No wine. And I was not pleasant for all 21 days, but there were some things in my life that I could not shake. And after 21 days, they were shaken.
Amen.
Prayer,
Yeah.
reading the Bible, didn't do it. Needed a fast.
Yep. It disciplines your flesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really does. It's something spiritual that happens, and it just disciplines your flesh, and it just will, and you just have a clear. But some of these things can't come out. Jesus said it without prayer and fasting. So,
Dan, you think our listeners got the emotion and the passion that we just saw in Nate?
Yeah, for sure. They definitely did.
Through the audio recording.
They definitely did.
That
Rewind it
was
back.
awesome. Romans 15:5 from Nate Butler.
yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
We
Guys,
cannot thank you enough.
I'm thankful for you guys, man. I just got 2 new brothers. What's good? You know what I mean?
It's awesome.
Tell them how. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you was gonna
No,
say.
please, you.
I was just gonna say I just got new brothers. You know, we can go eat sometime. You know what I mean?
That would
Break
be
bread.
good. That would be good.
I was gonna say, tell the people how they can follow you,
Oh,
all your handles and stuff.
Oh, yeah, we forgot that part.
it's all good. At Nate Butler, NateButler. That's at Nate Butler on Instagram. I haven't been on.
I found that yesterday.
Yeah, haven't been on Twitter as much, you know, but at Nate, and then my website is the Nate Butler. Man, you know the guy that owned Nate Butler tried to sell it to me. He was like, "Man, I'm getting so much love. People coming to my site.
How much?
I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna fix you.
I'll show you.
I'll show
That's
you.
right.
You're a Nate Butler, but I'm the Nate Butler. See, many have come after me, but
like that.
I'm the Nate Butler. So
That's
I got
good.
the Nate Butler. So
That's good.
thenatebutler.com. God, you can find out where I'm preaching and working on the album now.
Nice.
You know, working on a book, TV show.
Cool.
You know, so all worship in the wild. So it's going to be phenomenal.
Cool.
Awesome.
How you feel, David?
Yeah, David, how you feeling, bro?
I could actually continue this for another couple hours.
Oh.
I really could. It has been such rich conversation, and you know, near-death experience, poverty experience, like life change experience regarding what your vocation's going to be. And I got to imagine diversity experience. I got to imagine as you've been walking through those different experiences over the last 39 years.
Yeah, right around there, yeah.
At times it didn't feel great.
Oh, man.
And I want to say thank you for those experiences because they have shaped you and given you a story to tell. And I hope your words will shake the church. I hope they will shake our culture. But most importantly, I hope they will shake the church because it certainly did me. So thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. I've got a chance to get out.
Yeah, that's right. Without a mask.
Get out without a mask.
Well, guys, I'm Dan Riveros with my co-host
David Hendrickson.
and our special guest
Nate Butler.
Right on.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Walking Through Samaria. For more content like this, visit us at givingcompany.com. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Walking Through Samaria.